All right. Thank you, John, for joining me for this interview. Um, my my plan is to go over the fact sheet of the recall and have you respond to some of the questions, and then at the end we'll go ahead and I'll give you time to say anything else you wanted to say.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so number one on why the people that filed the recall feel that there is a need for a recall is creating a hostile county employment environments resulting in volunteer and forced resignations and internal personal chaos.
Is that a question?
Yeah, well, that's their statement. I guess my question would be, what is your response to that?
Well, I'm not sure what it is. Before I took office, I was hearing complaints about a similar environment at the county, that there was dysfunction on the board and conflict between some of the commissioners that was being played out during commissioners' meetings. And so I don't know, that pattern seemed to have continued because just personalities and what have you. I don't want to go into specifics about what any one commissioner may or may not have done. As far as volunteer and forced resignations, I don't believe that any of that was a direct result of anything that I or the other commissioners did. I was looking at their fact sheet, and it talked about county administrators and what have you. Yes, we've gone through 2 county administrators, public health directors, maintenance, and what have you. Most of those were handled by the county administrator. For instance, maintenance department, bookkeepers, weed board, weed district, the human resource officer. Those were administrative issues, and the commissioners really didn't touch on any of those. That was handled through the normal administrators' supervisory authority and their hire fire authority onto those departments. We were advised on some of it. Some of it just was handled internally. Some of the resignations were for personal reasons, moving out of the area, things of that nature. Some were because of conflict, or at least one was conflict between an individual and another county elected official, not the commissioners. And so we were just informed that that person had quit. As far as the county administrators, the first one resigned shortly after I took office, before I had a chance to even get familiar. We were still setting up all my emails and what have you. And I was told by that individual that her departure had nothing to do with my presence on the commission. I was directly involved with 2 of the departures. One was the second county administrator, which happened just recently, and the other was with the first public health director. The second one just quit no notice after we had a meeting where he had brought concerns to the board and was asking for assistance in terms of hiring more employees to deal with COVID and all. And the sense was we had a very cordial meeting, and he was going to bring us a list of his needs, and we were going to go over it the following week. And before we had a chance, that next morning he submitted his resignation. So the maintenance department I had nothing to do with, had nothing to do with anything going on in the commissioner's office. That had to do with issues there, some of which are confidential and we can't divulge right now. But it didn't have anything to do with the commissioners directly at that time. So I think that particular comment up there, it's totally subjective, and there's no real merit behind it, as probably is true with most of these allegations. It's kind of hard to fight these kinds of allegations because so much of the information is considered confidential, and we just can't tell the story. You're muted, Justin.
All right, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Second would be creating adversarial environments and chaos with other elected Rio Grande County officials. How would you respond to that you're creating those kind of environments?
Well, I don't believe I'm creating any, and I don't know which other elected Rio Grande County officials they're referring to here. I know that 3 of the elected officials, not in the commissioner's office, have approached me and said that this was not their feeling. One told me that that person was very upset that they had somehow been implicated in this recall petition, and that they did not agree with it at all. But again, that's up for them to speak for themselves. I can't speak for them. But it's my feeling that we've had a good relationship with the other county electeds, and basically they do their job. My assessment is they all do it very well. And I'm unaware of any conflict that we've had. We've had meetings over the time I've been there, and we've had issues that we've discussed, but I'm unaware of any conflict or any interference with their duties.
Okay. Second is incompetence, not being prepared for meetings, and failure to grasp issues facing the county where inappropriate decisions were to be made on behalf of the county, which in turn is a failure to perform the oath of office. So how would you respond to that, in that they feel that you are incompetent and not doing the job, and failure to perform your oath of office?
Well, that's a pretty ambiguous charge. I feel that I'm very prepared, and for these meetings, I make a point of reading all the documents ahead of time. Come through just as chairman, I've tried to keep the meetings on topic because there's a tendency to ramble on. And of course, during COVID with the Zoom meetings, it becomes more difficult. And I try not to interject myself unnecessarily in the meetings. We listen to whatever people have to say to us, and the other commissioners have plenty of opportunity to speak, and I tend not to speak unless it's something that hasn't been covered or I do have a particular point to make. But I do prepare, and I'm a little bit baffled by that particular allegation. It's just kind of thrown out there, and it's hard to respond to. I could go through a list of things that I've dealt with that had not been dealt with before, and we're facing additional issues now that have been brought before us. Right now we're dealing with what appear to be irregularities in grant management by a former employee, and again, we're just looking into it. We don't know yet where that's going, but we're on top of these things. A couple of things that I did work on, if I may speak to it, is what is now the bankruptcy of the SLRG Railroad. And initially when that was brought to us, which was in February of 18, where the owner of the railroad came to several counties, including Rio Grande, and asked for some relief on paying the property taxes. At that time, he owed several $100,000 to Rio Grande County. I was uncomfortable with his presentation, and I started looking into it. And through that process, that railroad filed in a Chicago court to go into a receivership, which, if it had been successful, the counties would not have gotten any of the money. I worked diligently with others, and we were able to move that action into the Colorado bankruptcy courts, the federal court in Colorado. And now the counties will most likely receive their taxes going forward. Had that not happened, we would have received virtually nothing. And that's the opinion of the council that's representing the bankruptcy petitioners. The other was Summitville, and there was a proposed land exchange between the Forest Service and the county. And the county owned land outside of the Superfund boundaries, and the Forest Service owned slivers of land inside the Superfund boundaries. The previous commissioners had negotiated an acre for acre exchange on that. So 72 acres of restricted land that's under CDPHE and EPA restrictions for 72 acres of unrestricted land on the outside. And so that had been approved, and I asked the question of the Forest Service, is this a normal practice? And they said, well, we can do that. I said, well, is there something like a value for value exchange? Because obviously unrestricted land has more value than land that you can't do anything with. And they said yes, and so we started a negotiation, and I would consider it somewhat of a symbolic achievement, where instead of trading 72 acres for 72 acres, we received 72 acres of Forest Service land for, I don't remember the exact number, but maybe 40 acres of county land. So things of that nature, I was on top of. The board had asked me to deal with both the railroad and the Summitville issue, and I think we are coming to successful conclusions on it. As far as the day-to-day operations in the county and being prepared for meetings, I feel I'm prepared. I read the contracts. I don't think all people do. And on occasion, I've had questions in those contracts. And sometimes we got good answers, sometimes we did not. And until we were comfortable with that and with the advice of our county attorney, we would not go forward on those things. So I'm not sure failure to perform the oath of office, the oath of office implies that I will do my best and work for the interest of the county and its constituents. And so I feel I have done that.
Okay, I just want to say that when I was reading that question, I'm very, this is my first time doing an interview, and I'm very nervous, and I don't want to, how I read that, and I don't want that to imply that I either agree or disagree with the question or the statement that they have put down. I just want to make that clear. So moving on, as an elected official, failure to effectively communicate with his constituency, how would you respond to that? And maybe how are you communicating with your constituency?
Well, for one, I'm out there. I talk to the constituents, they bring me their concerns. As far as communicating out information, it's clear that we're in the newspaper frequently. We are open in the meetings, and since we've gone to Zoom, everybody's had an opportunity to see those meetings if they chose to. And I've worked very diligently to solicit the input of people. When we were going through the public health officer departure, you may have been recording those meetings. I don't recall if you started doing it at that time. But there was one meeting where several people who were concerned about that decision logged on, and I spent a great deal of time granting those individuals a chance to speak to the board, more than normally would be granted, because I wanted to make sure that we were hearing and that they were also hearing to the extent we could share the information and show people how we had come to that conclusion. I'm in the paper, I'm quoted in the paper all the time because I get calls or reporters log into the meetings and they call the questions afterwards. I've spoken to groups. I don't know. I thought that was communicating effectively. I get calls all the time. A lot of them are very rough calls about something the county may or may not be doing. And I take the time to listen to those people and explain to them to the best of my ability what in fact is going on. So I feel like I do communicate.
Okay. next would be conducting himself in an inappropriate manner to his peers, subordinates, and external citizens, including but not limited to acting in a violent, confrontational, and unprofessional manner. How would you respond to that is going on?
That's a pretty vague charge, and again, it's very subjective. So I really don't know how to respond to that. By its very nature, a recall campaign is a negative campaign, and the people who are promoting the recall can say anything they want, and it leaves the victim, if you will, in an awkward position of having to defend themselves against vague charges that really don't have a response. I would disagree with them. Perhaps I'm more firm in my approach to things. I don't back away from issues. I don't give up because I'm tired of listening to people and just throw in the towel if I'm convinced that an issue needs to be dealt with and questions need to be asked, I ask. And if people deflect, demur, or otherwise dodge the question, I will persist until I get an answer, and some people may consider that hostile.
Okay. Failure to follow state and county policies, procedures, and statutes, including but not limited to open meeting laws. Do you feel that you have not followed any of these procedures or laws?
I don't believe that I have failed to follow them. In fact, one of my concerns when I took office, having attended many commissioners' meetings prior to that, is I could tell that the commissioners were not necessarily following these laws, particularly when it came to executive sessions, out of chambers meetings, things of that nature. And I worked diligently to correct that, and we don't go into meetings, particularly executive sessions or confidential meetings, without the direct advice of our county attorney. And so we look to that individual when we're going to discuss an issue. We'll ask them, is this an executive session issue? Is this something that needs to be handled in an open meeting? And I've tried my best to avoid anything that would appear to be a violation of any statutes on open meeting laws. Again, the county attorney would be in a better position to address that than I. I can't imagine that he's going to want to weigh in on it, but we act in accordance with the advice and consent of our council.
Okay. Let me just look through the rest of this. It seems to reiterate itself, maybe in a little bit more detail, but most of it is the same. Another question I would have, if there is enough signatures, would you file a protest? The fact sheet says here that would be from August 15th to the 29th would be your time to file a protest.
Oh, it would depend on if there's something that we can file a protest, or I could file a protest on, if there was cause. In that case, I would probably file a protest. I really can't answer that until we see what comes in on August 12th.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's all of the questions I have for today. Is there any other statement or anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I guess the comment I would have is that I feel that the petition itself is misleading. It is misleading in the sense of omissions, lack of detail. So whenever you, let's say, compile a list of all the employee turnover since I took office, the implication is that somehow I'm directly responsible for that. Well, a careful examination of those numbers would show that, quite frankly, that's not true. And so but it leaves the public with the impression that there's been chaos. If a person would go back and look at the county audit for the last several years, one of the things they note consistently is Rio Grande County is plagued with turnover long before I ever took office. And so this is not new. We've had some major turnover. Whenever the county administrator left and a new county administrator was hired, that person felt that there were some issues inside the office with perhaps personnel or practices that she dealt with. And as a result, we had some terminations or voluntary resignations. And some of these were simply people quitting for other reasons. But as you read this, the implication is that one commissioner created this atmosphere and this many employees quit. That's clearly not the case. Anybody that thought about it would understand that.
Okay, I would just like to thank you for your time and thank you for doing this interview. I'm going to stop the recording now.
So here is the a statement that I received from the recall people. Recall Rio Grande County Commissioner John Nofsker. A committee has been formed to recall Rio Grande County Commissioner John Nofsker. This nonpartisan effort came about in light of serious concerns about how Rio Grande County is being managed according to the organizational chart on the Commissioner's website. The Commissioners work for the citizens of the county, and many of our fellow citizens are recognizing the actions of Mr. Nofsker and the board of which he is currently chairman. Our concerns are that Nofsker has created an adversarial working environment for county employees, which has resulted in both volunteer and forced resignations, as well as terminations. Has created an adversarial working environment for other elected county officials. Some officials refuse to meet with him. Is incompetent, unprepared for meetings, and fails to grasp issues that are important to the county, which delays important decisions and is clearly a failure to perform the duties sworn in his oath of office. Has difficulty communicating effectively with his constituents, conducts himself in an inappropriate manner with his peers, subordinates, and external persons. He is frequently volatile, threatening, confrontational, and unprofessional. Fails to follow state and county policies, procedures, especially in terms of adhering to open meeting rules. While our apprehension has been building for some time, we became truly distressed when the well-qualified director of public health was terminated in May, only 6 weeks after the termination of the interim director of public health resigned, citing a lack of support from the Board of County Commissioners, which had also appointed themselves the County Board of Health. We believe that if there were perceived problems with the public health department, the board would have made a plan to rectify those problems immediately upon the termination of the director. Now, more than 2 months later, and with yet a second interim director in place, no new hires have been made, and the department only has one nurse. This would be a This would be a troubling situation under any circumstances, but in the midst of a pandemic with schools set to open and with flu season nearly upon us, this is now a grave concern. The lack of prompt and effective action indicates that Mr. Nofsker's leadership falls short of what is necessary to keep our county safe and functional. Due to the hostile work environment, the county's administration department has also lost 2 key people in the last week, including county administrator, also the second person in that position to resign while Mr. Nofsker has been commissioner. Last regular meeting sorry. Among other things, the ability to manage the payroll is now severely limited, as the last regular meeting of the board, Mr. Nofsker stated that meetings needed to be held to determine how each commissioner can assist with administration tasks, but that meeting has not been held yet, at least not in an open meeting setting, which again delays decision and would affect how and when county employees and suppliers get paid. Citizens can watch these meetings themselves on YouTube on the Rio Grande Seer channel. We highly recommend that you watch all the posted meetings, particularly ones held on May 27th and July 27th. It is worth noting that fellow Commissioner Suzanne Bothell asked Commissioner Nofsinger to resign during the 27th of July meeting. For many years, Rio Grande County has been respected and considered a great place to work. It has had its share of problems, but has always worked in the spirit of solving the problems together. This is no longer the case under Mr. Nofsker's influential leadership. The citizens need and deserve a functional and reliable government for Rio Grande County, and thus have launched this effort to recall and replace Mr. Nofsker with a qualified candidate to be chosen in a subsequent election. Time is of the essence if we are to get this important decision before the voters on the November ballot. Petitions are available for signatures by registered voters of Rio Grande County. Please act quickly and contact Deanna Elliott, Virginia Christensen, Medja Swift, Laura Conchialos, or Mona Searing. And I will go ahead and post a link to this comment I got that has the contact information on it. But again, this is not a endorsement of either party involved. I'm just trying to get both sides out there. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe and click the bell so you can get notifications when I either go live or post a video. Thank you.